The way I describe it to our members in the FTA is that you need to see it as any other systemic business risk, and whether it's the potential loss of a major customer or opening up in a brand new market or even something like managing a bad debt, you need to look at it in the way as you do all the other risks that you're called on to manage in a business, because although there are no certainties yet, this is something which is very much front of mind and you need to be taking it seriously. I think there are a lot of businesses that are alive to the risks of Brexit. The trouble is, of course, that until very recently there's been very, very limited information available from the British government, and frankly even less from EU 27 governments that is of sufficient detail and certainty for supply chain managers, logisticians, forwarders, shippers, hauliers to actually start to make real operational plans. Part of what we're doing is to try to make people aware that they need this information, because they'll need to be talking to their customers, to their suppliers, to start generating this data. And of course, collectively, I think there's a task for all of us in the logistics industry to go to respective governments and governments agencies and say, you may not be planning for a hard Brexit, but we are. We need you to cooperate and support us through this process, which is of course partly of their own making. My first advice would be to understand your exposure, because it's really only UK-EU supply chains that are under real pressure here. If you just do continental distribution, or if you just do UK distribution, for the time being you're going to be largely immune from all of these Brexit forces. If you just trade with non-EU countries, then again nothing much will change. It's those UK-EU supply chains which are going to go through change, and depending on your stake in those, and that will determine your exposure to these risks and the amount of time and resource that you should be putting into trying to understand them. Well, I've said in the presentation today that technically there are 4 scenarios. The first one is that Brexit might be cancelled, and whilst that may well be the wish of a lot of people in supply chain and distribution faced with this task, it's not at the moment a realistic prospect politically in the UK. And I have to say, given the latest opinion polls in the UK, even if the referendum were rerun, there's no guarantee it would come out with a different result. So I think you need to accept that Brexit in some form or another is going to happen. The next question is, how bad will it be and when will it happen? Hopefully there will be a withdrawal agreement with the European Union, which is reached either this month or next month or at some point, which means that there is a transition period and we all get a slightly longer period of time to prepare. So rather than it be 2019, March 2019, it becomes December 2020. That would be a hard Brexit where there will be borders, but as I say, we hopefully have a little bit more time to prepare. The real nightmare scenario, because no one's ready for this, of course, is that the politicians can't agree, and they simply agree they can't agree, and therefore we proceed to the 29th, 30th of March 2019, with the fact that no one is really ready for this, for rest of world trading conditions, WTO rules, no aviation agreement, no road haulage agreement in place, no clarity as to the status of migrant workers in either jurisdiction. It is really going to be quite chaotic as we work all through those. That's a very real prospect still. We need to consider each of those in turn and understand what our exposure is to them. We hear a lot about what happens to the goods and customs and checks and so on. The 2 big areas for me, given the dependency of UK-EU trade on road transport, is the need for haulage permits to actually allow trucks to cross international borders. So British trucks will need permits to travel on the continent and vice versa. So there will be an additional layer of bureaucracy that hauliers will need to go through to possibly acquire these permits, and that will be quite an interesting process because there are not enough permits to go round to cover the amount of trade that is currently taking place. And there are some consequential issues around the recognition of driver qualifications because upon leaving the single market, there's no absolute guarantee that, for example, British driving licences, and particularly truck driving licences, will automatically be recognised in the continent, or vice versa. So you don't hear very much about that, but actually it is a showstopper issue, because unless those are sorted out, even though the goods have been cleared through customs and all the other checks, if the vehicle carrying them cannot physically travel and the driver driving it cannot be admitted to the country, then game over. Yes, there are massive opportunities for logistics businesses to offer new added value services to help their customers get through Brexit in whatever form it comes at us. And I'm certainly aware of a lot of businesses that are looking to meet their customers' needs in this respect. There is no silver bullet. I think it would be, frankly, irresponsible for customers, shippers, simply to outsource the whole problem of Brexit to their logistics provider, because their logistics provider will need their cooperation, their support, and above all, a lot of information about the products in order for them to be able to clear customs and meet all the other new duties that will be imposed. But in the longer term, and assuming that the UK does leave the EU on terms which make this possible, then there is a great possibility for the United Kingdom to strike new trade deals with other countries all around the world. And the UK government has already identified its wish to do that with the United States, with Australia, with New Zealand, and to join the Trans-Pacific Agreements, which brings in a whole host of countries in that region. And that obviously gives British manufacturers, British exporters, new opportunities in new markets. Our job at the Freight Transport Association will be to make those new trade deals as logistics friendly as possible, so that many of the sources of friction and delay and disruption to that new trade is eliminated, and trading with these new markets is made as easy as possible for British companies. Coming to the EFT Supply Chain Summit has been a great experience, because I am talking to a non-UK audience, or at least those with the responsibility for non-UK operations. And whilst I think, because of obviously the media attention and so on, this is a very well understood issue in the UK, it has been a very welcome opportunity for me to help to try to explain to a continental audience that they really do need to take this seriously. And to a great extent, this is a non-competitive issue. We're all in this together. We need to make sure that different parties in the supply chain are genuinely cooperating, because they all need each other to get through these new requirements. And of course, there's a lot of knowledge and sharing that can take place, and conferences and events like this one are great places for that cross-fertilisation to take place. So from the point of view of communicating what the Freight Transport Association knows about Brexit, this has been an unparalleled opportunity, and I really do hope that I've helped your delegates to understand what's at stake and get them to take this issue seriously.